Reapers. Hello, Cyber Reapers. So, tonight or today, whenever, wherever you are, I would like to talk about a book. And this is the second book of the Gumio duology. And I talked about the first book, Wicked Fox by Kat Cho, last week. And this week, I'm going to talk about Vicious Spirits, which is the second book, also by Kat Cho. So, I loved getting back into this universe. When I read the first book, I didn't realize it was a duology, so I thought everything was wrapping up. And then I got to the epilogue, where it revealed, hey, matters are not completely closed, so let's get back into it. And I'm really fortunate that the second book was available at the library at the time, too, that I could just roll right into reading the second one. So that's a relief. And I absolutely loved this one, I think, even more than the first book. And the first book, I liked that one quite a bit, but I think this one just really expanded quite a bit on the characters in ways I didn't think were possible, I guess. There was so much more character growth even, and of course there was, life or death stakes, just as the first book had, and now the side characters got a lot more attention, and also even a romance developing, a second one, so that's super fun. Now let me actually maybe explain it a little more coherently. So after the events of the first book, I'm not gonna spoil what happens at the end. I'm just gonna say after a bunch of supernatural shenanigans and things, lots of events, after that they think for a bit, okay, maybe we can move on. The main characters, the friend group, so that's Myung, Jun, Junu, and Somin. And so they think, okay, maybe we can move on now that all those events have passed, all of them have happened. But turns out no, after the events of the first book, the events resulted in a tear between the mortal realm and where spirits go after they die, So that means there's a bunch of ghosts that are now starting to wander, the planet. They're just out and about, they're there, and it's not good, especially because after a little while, if these ghosts aren't put to rest, they start kind of becoming a distorted version of themselves, angrier, and more just not really themselves. And so that kind of messes with the psyche of anybody who knew them, back when they were alive. And so that's kind of the main problem. And so the way they know about this problem, though, is that a Grim Reaper shows up and essentially kind of warns them ahead of time, saying, hey, there's a tear because of what y'all did. We need you to solve that. And if you don't, we're just gonna kill one of you in order to solve this. And if you read the first book events, you understand why that's the case, that one of them has to die. Specifically, Myung has to die if the group can't solve this issue in a week. So, yeah. Life or death stakes now again. And they have to figure out, okay, how do we solve this terror that's going on? And yeah. Okay, so let me just kind of do a little itty-bitty recap, sort of, or covering of the characters, not really what happened to them, just kind of who they are a little bit. Myung is a Gumio, or a nine-tailed fox. And Gumio are creatures, nine-tailed foxes, mythical beings who essentially they are immortal beings that can live on and on by devouring the souls of men. And so that's, yeah. And Myung is she's very hard on herself. She does her best to try to take care of everything on her own, and she kind of learns learns how to allow other people to, like, be there for her, to step in to take care of her, that kind of thing. June, her love interest, they're together. June has kind of a unique family dynamic. He doesn't like to show it too much that things get to him. He tries to put on just like a goofy sort of facade to keep people from thinking that he's ever sad or ever taking anything too seriously. And over the course of over time, he just kind of, he allows himself to let other people in, and to also kind of realize what he's been holding back so much in his thoughts and opinions and such, and just kind of just doing some self-reflection and growing. And I say that very generally, I think, because I think it's easier if you just read it. There are a lot of nuanced ways that these characters grow, and I absolutely love it, because I feel like they don't grow in just one way. Like, every single one of them tackles different things, and they all tackle grief as well. I just realized, all four of the main characters. But yeah, let me get to the other two. Junu is a dokebi. I think that was how it was said. And dokebi are like goblin kind of creatures, and they tend to be, they are able to hoard a lot of like money and stuff, because of a magical staff or a club that they have. And in Junu's case, he actually lost his, so he doesn't have his. He as a result, makes his money through business dealings with the supernatural and humans, and he just, over time, he's an immortal being, who's like built up his wealth by making deals and stuff. And he seems very shady at first, and like he pushes people away. He acts like he really doesn't care about anybody. But yeah, he cares more than he lets on, though. Especially because after the events of the first book, he feels like he needs to stick around the group, because he feels like he kind of owes Myung in particular a debt. And so for the second book, that's why he's still there, even though pretty much the whole friend group doesn't treat him very well. And to be fair, he's very blunt with them, and he acts flippant, like he's not really taking them seriously, like they're kind of just like a game to him, even though he does genuinely want to be there because he feels like he needs to be. Yeah, I really liked reading about Junu's character through this book, because he was a side character in the first book, but this book really just showed a lot more of him, and it was really neat, especially to learn about, I'm gonna get it eventually, dokebi. I gotta look up the pronunciation again. But to learn about the goblin creatures, because the way the first and second book the way they work, there's the main overall story that's happening, but they also have kind of little interjections of kind of folklore, history, like a couple of pages every so often that kind of explain what happened to some of the Gumio or the Dokebi in the past, and also what happened to the ones in the book. And so that was really neat, feeling like I was kind of getting extra context on what was going on, because of learning about the mythical creatures as well as what was currently happening. And then we get to our who I'd consider our fourth kind of main character, Somin. And she is like, she's human, first of all, like June. And, I mean, she grew up with June. They are practically like siblings. And Somin is just used to, like, putting so much burden on herself and trying to do things for others without them asking her to. And she's so loyal, and she so cares about other people. And she's very much up for defending herself and her friends. Like, she's fierce. And I found her really neat, following her, because I feel like she's very punchy in a I feel like it's weird to say feisty. I don't know, but the word kind of does match her, sort of. I feel like that's how Junu would refer to her, as feisty. And by the way, I mentioned romance. Those are the two that end up having a romance in this book, Junu and Somin. So I actually like their romance even better than, like, the Myung June one. And, like, I love that one, but, like, with Junu and Somin, I feel like they're just so funny. They bicker so much, and they, like, act like they don't like each other, even though they're doing things actively that show that they care about each other. And just their dynamic is so fun. I like it a lot, because of how much they're just kind of bickering the whole time. But yeah, and they just slowly but surely peel away the walls that they're keeping up, from each other, or for each other, and also for the rest of the world. They let down their guard around each other, is what I'm trying to say. And it's a tough process, because there's a lot of layers for both of them, for why they are so argumentative with each other. But yeah, over the course of the book, it makes so much sense to, like, really see how and why they behave the way that they do. And I feel like they just pair well, so yeah. I like them quite a bit. I think my favorite aspect of this book, too, is just that everything, it happened definitely in the first book, too, but for this one, it just felt so, like, there was a really neat balance of, there's the life or death, high-stakes events, and then there's just, like, a bunch of interpersonal things that the characters have to work through, and also facing their own, like, self-perceptions, and realizing that they've made mistakes, realizing that there are ways that they can grow. And impressively, I'm pretty sure this book takes place within a week, or like 2 weeks. The first book, if I remember right, expanded over like several months, and then in this book it's like a week, because that's about how long they have to solve the problem of the ghosts wandering the earth. So all of the intense stuff that's happening in this book is really condensed, in terms of time frame, but it feels just as lush and flushed out as the first book. It just doesn't feel as long. It feels like the pace is a lot quicker, because you're going day after day. You have to go to the next thing that helps solve this issue of the ghosts and everything, while also the characters are arguing with each other and, like, also bonding with each other, and it's wild and it's fun. I loved this so much. Oh yeah, and in terms of just, like, the Korean folklore and culture and stuff, as with the first book, it was all very cool. In terms of representation, the main characters, well, the cast is, like, they're all Korean. Specifically, the story takes place in Seoul, South Korea. It also partially takes place on a mountain, but I don't remember if they ever said the mountain name. But yeah, So it's, yeah. And then there's another glossary at the end of this book as well to cover Korean words that maybe the reader doesn't know. And I'm getting a little more familiar with the words that are frequently said, so I'm pretty happy about that. And yeah, this book again mentioned tteokbokki. I hope that's how you say it. The spicy rice cake street food dish. And I had some between last week and this week, by the way. So I got some from the store and I made it. And indeed, it burned my mouth. But it was great. It tasted wonderful. But now that this book has mentioned it again, I feel like I gotta get a different flavor or something. I'm not quite up to the level of spice tolerance, I don't think, to be able to take on the same flavor that I just bought, the spicy one. Technically it's sweet and spicy, but it's a lot more spicy than what I can handle. So I might go for one of the other two flavors I think that they had. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. I love it when books inspire me to try food that's in the book, though. It's just fun, another way of immersing myself in kind of the universes. And it's a little sad now that, like, this is a duology, so I don't have any more of these characters to read, you know? It's just the end, you know? And I feel like I'm kind of lingering in that universe, and I'm going, I want to know more. And I mean, of course I can reread it, but I feel like I don't know if I'm leaning towards I want more of these specific characters, or if just, like, reading another book with, like, Gumio and Dokebi creatures and stuff, if, like, reading more of those reading more books with those would, like, satisfy my curiosity or something. I feel like I should, though, regardless, find more, because I'm going, hey, I know a little bit more about the lore now. Let me see if I can actually, like, get it more in my head, you know? And it's kind of sad, I feel like, that as a kid, I feel like it was really popular, at least in my area. I don't know if it's across all of America, but just growing up in Houston, Texas, it was, pretty popular to, like, read books with Greek mythology in them. And, like, I loved those books, but it's not very popular to read a lot of other mythology other than Greek, like maybe Egyptian, maybe Norse, but as a kid, really, it's like Greek mythology is kind of what you are expected to know if you've read any mythology, and, like, here and there you can, know about some paranormal stuff like vampires and werewolves, but it's all very generic. It's not even, like, region-specific vampires or werewolves, or anything else, And so I'm hoping, as part of my going into mythology in books a little bit, I'm hoping to not just read, Greek mythology stuff. I want to read all kinds of mythology, and I think this has been an awesome little start of getting into learning about other creatures that exist, around the world as part of paranormal or supernatural, or mythological, like, folklore. So this was a really cool experience for that. I highly suggest these two books if you're looking for, like, kind of an introductory way into, specifically, like, Korean, myth or folklore, that focuses around, Gumio and, Dokebi. I'm gonna figure out the accent at one point. We'll see. I feel like I was really quick this time around in getting through all my notes, which is surprising because I feel like I am tired, like I should be sleeping. That's not what I meant to say. I feel like I should be speaking, like, more slowly, but it feels like this is the pace that I'm going, just kind of here. I'm just kind of here, and I'm just kind of enjoying thinking about this book, because I really did feel like this was a nice experience, and I'm still lingering in it a little bit, not quite wanting to leave the universe just yet, especially because really that romance did hook me, the between Juno and Somin, because like those two are really just so much fun together. And especially there were a few moments where I was like kind of internally yelling at the book, like they just got in an argument and then Somin leaves and Junu's like, fine, I'm not gonna follow her, and I'm going, no, run after her, fix this, and like 5 seconds later he runs after her to fix it. I love that it actually followed through on what I was wanting the characters to do. It didn't all the time, but like in some moments like that, I was going, yes, they actually did the thing. But yeah, that was moments like that in particular amused me. That the book was like going, all right, yes, we'll give you what you want, and then we will make it worse. We will make the situation even more tense and give you even more angst, and it's great. And the way the whole situation resolves too, I was pleased with, because I was really unsure how they were gonna fix the rift, and whenever kind of the solutions kept coming up, I was going, this feels like this is not gonna work out well, but then it did, so that's all I'll say about that. Everything wrapped up well. It feels like, I mean, I could see another book if the author, if Kat Cho wanted to like go back into this universe more, like I could see that, but at the same time this wrapped up really nicely, of being 2 books where the first book was more about like Gumio lore and focusing very much on Myung and Jiun, and then the second book being more about like the Dokebi lore and focusing on Junu and Somin. And even though the second book did focus on them more, it didn't like completely like leave out Myung and Jiun, which I was really happy with, because I thought it was going to be more like, no, we're only focusing on Junu and Somin in this book. But no, they just kind of carried over with what was the entire situation that was going on. It just kind of carried over, and it wasn't like Myung and Jun got like no attention. It was like they just kind of weren't the stars as much anymore, but at the same time they weren't, their roles were not like minimal, they were important. And I really liked that it was more like Junu and Somin just kind of rising up to meet the other two in level of importance. Yeah, I guess, okay, I think that's maybe all I had to say about all that. And I hope also that my cat hasn't made too much background noise for you. He's mostly right now, he's just sitting in a chair in front of me, but he moved a little bit earlier, so I don't know. We'll have to see in editing if he's been mischievously making noise to add to this ASMR experience. Anyhow, I think though, yeah, Vicious Spirits by Kat Cho, the second book in the Gumio duology. I've completed it. I feel really good actually having completed this. Just these 2 books felt like so rich in story. I was having so much fun reading them. That it's gonna be weird to read another book, I feel like, after this. But we'll see. I have a couple of choices from my library, so okay. So thank you so much for listening. You are an awesome listener. know next, it is fun and or relaxing and or fulfilling or worthwhile to you. Ideally all three.